I live in a quiet little neighborhood where everyone knows each other, or at least thinks they do. It's the kind of place where kids play outside, and neighbors exchange a nod or a quick hello as they walk their dogs. I've always felt comfortable here, surrounded by familiar faces and the gentle rhythm of small-town life. But there was one neighbor who always stood out to me, Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins was an older man, probably in his late 70s or early 80s. He lived alone in the small house at the end of the block, the one with the overgrown garden and the faded blue door. I never saw him much during the day. He kept odd hours, sometimes sitting quietly on his porch in the early morning, other times inside with his curtains drawn. Whenever we crossed paths, he'd give a polite nod or a soft smile, but he wasn't the type to chat for long. I remember that he had this quiet, slow way about him, always wearing the same old cardigan with a thin cane he used to shuffle around the yard. Despite his age and frailty, there was something steady and gentle in his presence. Yet, there was also an unmistakable loneliness about him, a sort of silence that seemed to fill the space around his house. You could tell he was used to being alone, but there was a weight to it, like a story hidden beneath his calm exterior. Over the years, we had small, casual interactions, exchanging greetings, helping him with a heavy bag now and then, or borrowing sugar when my baking ran short. But beyond that, I knew almost nothing about him. There was always this quiet mystery surrounding Mr. Jenkins, and part of me wondered what life had been like for him all these years. Little did I know, his story was about to become a part of mine in a way I never could have expected. One chilly autumn afternoon, as I was coming back from the grocery store, I noticed Mr. Jenkins sitting on his porch, looking more thoughtful than usual. To my surprise, he called out to me and asked if I'd like to come in for a cup of tea. I hesitated for a moment. After all, we barely spoke beyond a quick hello, but something in his voice was gentle, sincere. So, I agreed, curiosity getting the better of me. Walking into his house was like stepping into a different world. The air smelled faintly of old books and lavender, mixed with the comforting warmth of wood smoke from a small fireplace crackling in the corner. The furniture was worn but neatly arranged, and soft light filtered through lace curtains, casting gentle patterns on the walls. I could hear the faint ticking of an old clock and the quiet hum of a radio playing classical music in the background. It was peaceful, yet there was a hint of sadness in the stillness. Mr. Jenkins brewed the tea himself, carefully pouring it into delicate china cups. As we sat down, he surprised me by opening up about his life. He spoke slowly, his voice tinged with both warmth and sorrow, about years spent alone after losing his wife many years ago. He admitted how loneliness had crept in quietly, filling the spaces in his days and nights. There was no bitterness, just a deep honesty about missing companionship and the simple joys of sharing moments with someone. Listening to him, I felt a connection I hadn't expected, a glimpse behind the quiet man everyone thought they knew. It was clear this wasn't just a casual invitation. Something important was on his mind. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the room, I realized this visit was the start of something that would change both our lives forever. A few weeks after that unexpected tea visit, I was going about my usual day when I found an official-looking envelope sitting on my kitchen table. The return address caught my eye immediately. It was from a law firm I had never heard of before. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. curiosity mixing with a strange sense of dread. Inside was a letter that completely threw me off balance. The letter explained that Mr. Jenkins had passed away peacefully and, surprisingly, had left me his house in his will. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake or even a cruel prank. Why would an old neighbor, someone I barely knew, leave me something as big as his home? The thought seemed impossible, and yet the lawyer's letter was official and detailed, complete with instructions about how to proceed with the inheritance. My mind raced with questions. Was this a scam? Could someone have forged Mr. Jenkins's signature? I even considered the idea that maybe I was being set up for something I didn't understand. I called the lawyer's office to verify the letter's authenticity and was assured it was legitimate. Still, doubt lingered. I tried reaching out to Mr. Jenkins directly to clear things up, but of course, there was no answer. His phone had been disconnected, and none of his few acquaintances had seen or heard from him lately. The silence only deepened the mystery and made me feel even more uneasy. With each passing day, the tension grew. Why had Mr. Jenkins chosen me? What did he want me to do with the house? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, something hidden beneath the surface that I hadn't yet uncovered. That simple letter had opened a door into a world I never expected to enter, and now I was trapped between confusion, suspicion, and a strange sense of responsibility I wasn't sure I wanted. After days of trying, I finally got a call back from Mr. Jenkins. To say I was surprised would be an understatement. I had assumed he was gone or unreachable, but here he was, calm and steady, inviting me to meet at his house. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Nervousness, curiosity, and a bit of fear about what he might say. When I arrived, the house looked the same as always, but Mr. Jenkins seemed different, quieter, more serious. We sat down in his small, cozy living room, and he began to explain why he left me his home. His voice cracked with emotion as he spoke about trust, kindness, and the loneliness he had felt over the years. He told me that out of all the people he knew, I was the one who showed him respect and genuine care, even in small ways. Hearing this softened my view of him. I realized there was so much about his life I never understood. So many moments of silence filled with his own struggles. For the first time, I felt a real connection, not just as neighbors, but as people who had quietly supported each other. But as we talked, I noticed something else. Outside, neighbors began to whisper, and I could sense the quiet shift in the atmosphere. Rumors started spreading quickly. Why would Mr. Jenkins give his house away like this? Some wondered if I had taken advantage of him. Others said I was lucky or even suspicious. I left the meeting with a jumble of emotions. Gratitude for his trust, confusion over the sudden responsibility, and fear of the judgment and challenges that awaited me. The peaceful neighborhood I had known felt suddenly charged with tension, and I couldn't help but wonder what was coming next. Whatever the future held, I knew this was just the beginning of a story much bigger than I ever expected. After news spread that Mr. Jenkins had left me his house, the neighborhood's friendly vibe shifted into something tense and uneasy. I started noticing whispers behind my back whenever I stepped outside. People who once greeted me warmly now gave quick glances or avoided eye contact altogether. It felt like suddenly I was the subject of suspicion or gossip. It didn't take long before strangers began showing up at the house. They claimed to be distant relatives of Mr. Jenkins or people with some supposed right to the property. Each time, They came with stories or demands, expecting me to just hand over the keys. I tried to stay polite, but their presence felt invasive and unsettling. Not long after, official-looking letters began arriving in the mail. Legal notices about claims to the house, demands for meetings, and warnings of possible disputes. I found myself in and out of lawyer offices, trying to understand the complex situation. Every meeting brought more questions, more paperwork, and more pressure. The reality of suddenly inheriting a house with all the responsibility and conflict was sinking in hard. The stress started to pile up. I began to dread answering the door or checking my mailbox. Friends who didn't know the full story tried to offer support, but I felt isolated, unable to share the full weight of what was happening. I'd lie awake at night, my mind racing with worries about losing the house, the legal battles, and what the neighbors thought of me now. The house that once seemed like a gift was starting to feel like a burden, a constant source of anxiety that pulled me away from the simple life I'd known. I missed the quiet moments, the easy chats with Mr. Jenkins, and the peaceful neighborhood before all this drama. But through it all, I knew I had to stay strong. This wasn't just about a house. It was about honoring the trust Mr. Jenkins placed in me. Despite the rising tension and growing isolation, I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine and to protect the legacy of a man who had quietly changed my life. As the days passed and the pressure mounted, I found myself sinking into doubt. Was I really the right person to inherit Mr. Jenkins' house? It felt overwhelming, like carrying a weight far heavier than I was prepared for. The responsibility wasn't just about maintaining a property. It felt like I had become the keeper of his memory, his trust, and his lonely past. Sometimes it was hard not to question if I deserved this at all. Late at night, when the house was quiet and shadows stretched across the walls, my mind wandered back to memories of Mr. Jenkins. I remembered the quiet mornings when he'd wave from his porch, the times he shared small stories about his younger days, and the rare moments when he let his guard down and revealed his loneliness. Those flashes of his life made the house feel less like an inheritance and more like a final gift, a connection between two lives that were more intertwined than I realized. But with those memories came waves of emotion, hope mixed with despair. I hoped I could honor his trust and make something good out of this unexpected gift. Yet, the fear of failure, of losing the house to strangers, or losing myself under the pressure, gnawed at me relentlessly. Some days I felt ready to face whatever came next. Other days the darkness crept in, whispering that maybe this was too much for me. Friends tried to support me, but it was hard to explain the storm inside. The quiet moments were filled with internal battles, between gratitude for Mr. Jenkins' faith in me and the crushing loneliness of feeling alone in this fight. I wanted to believe that things would turn out okay, but the uncertainty kept me on edge. I was caught in a swirling mix of emotions, each pulling me in different directions. The house was no longer just bricks and mortar. It was a symbol of trust, a source of conflict, and a reflection of my own fears. As the shadows lengthened, I knew one thing for certain. This story wasn't finished yet. The hardest moments were still to come, and I had to be ready. The legal battle began almost as soon as the rumors spread. Strangers appeared out of nowhere, claiming to be distant relatives or rightful heirs to Mr. Jenkins' estate. Their sudden arrival only added to the mounting pressure. Letters and legal notices flooded my mailbox, and what started as quiet whispers among neighbors soon became a full-blown fight over the house. I found myself in a whirlwind of lawyer meetings, paperwork, and court dates. The world I'd known seemed to vanish, replaced by the sterile atmosphere of legal offices and tense discussions. Every new day brought unexpected twists, claims challenged, documents questioned, and old family secrets threatening to resurface. It was during this chaotic time that I uncovered surprising parts of Mr. Jenkins's past. Hidden away in dusty boxes in the attic, I found letters and photographs revealing a life far richer and more complicated than I ever imagined. Stories of lost love, sacrifices, and friendships that had faded with time. I realized the trust he placed in me wasn't random. It was rooted in moments we shared, however small, that meant more to him than he had let on. As I pieced together these fragments of his life, I felt the growing resolve. I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting to preserve Mr. Jenkins' legacy and the quiet kindness he had shown me. Slowly, I found allies, friends from the neighborhood, a sympathetic lawyer who believed in my story, and even some neighbors who remembered the man behind the rumors. Their support became a lifeline. Gathering proof wasn't easy. I had to dig deep, find witnesses, organize documents, and prepare for every challenge the opposing side threw at me. The courtroom battles were tense, with every detail scrutinized and every motive questioned. But with each session, my confusion turned into clarity, and my fear turned into determination. I learned that trust isn't given lightly, and sometimes it arrives when you least expect it. The fight to keep the house was more than legal. It was a testament to the bond formed between two unlikely people in a quiet neighborhood. As the case moved forward, I felt ready to face whatever came next, knowing I wasn't just defending a building, but honoring a man's final gift to me. After months of tension and uncertainty, the final decision came. The court ruled in my favor, confirming that Mr. Jenkins's will was valid and that the house was rightfully mine. Relief washed over me like a long-awaited tide. It wasn't just about winning a legal battle. It was about honoring the trust he placed in me and preserving his memory. Moving into the house felt both strange and comforting. The walls held echoes of Mr. Jenkins' life. The worn furniture, faded photographs, and small mementos he'd collected over the years. Slowly, I began to make the space my own, blending my life with the traces of his. Each corner told a story, and each day I learned a little more about the man who had trusted me with so much. Living there brought a new understanding of kindness and trust. I realized that sometimes the most meaningful connections come from unexpected places, between people who may seem worlds apart. Mr. Jenkins' gift wasn't just a house. It was a reminder of the power of empathy and the importance of seeing beyond first impressions. Neighbors who had once whispered behind my back now greeted me with nods or quiet smiles. The community felt different, a little warmer, a little closer. Through this experience, I discovered that legacy isn't just about what we leave behind, but how we carry it forward, reaching out, listening more carefully, and appreciating the small acts of connection that make life richer. This new chapter is both an ending and a beginning, the closing of a difficult fight and the start of a hopeful journey. As I settle into this unexpected inheritance, I feel grateful for the lessons learned and the bonds formed. Mr. Jenkins' story is now part of mine, and I carry it with pride and respect. In a world that often feels rushed and disconnected, This experience has taught me that kindness can change lives in surprising ways. Sometimes it takes just one person seeing you, truly seeing you, to shift everything. Looking back on this journey, I'm amazed at how much has changed in my life, all because of a quiet old neighbor who trusted me when no one else seemed to. What started as a simple invitation for tea turned into an unexpected gift, a challenge, and ultimately, a lesson in kindness and trust. I learned that sometimes, the people we barely notice carry stories and hearts deeper than we could imagine. Mr. Jenkins taught me that kindness isn't just about grand gestures. It's about seeing someone, listening, and showing up, even when it's hard. Trust can be a powerful force, and it can come from the most surprising places. This experience changed me. It opened my eyes to the value of community and connection. It reminded me to be patient and compassionate, especially toward those who seem lonely or different. Because anyone's story, no matter how quiet or hidden, can change your life in ways you never expected. So, I encourage you to look around you. Appreciate the people nearby, even the ones who seem distant or mysterious. Reach out, be kind, and keep your heart open. You never know when a simple act or a moment of trust might create something beautiful and lasting. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you to embrace kindness and trust in your own life, and to remember that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected places